peasant carrying a bundle of sticks who says, "We should improve society somewhat." In response, some moron with a self-satisfied grin pops out of a well and says, "Yet you participate in society. Curious. I am very intelligent." From what I can tell, Boers is on the left, and given that the protagonist of his comic is a literal peasant, he's presumably lamenting idiots who think they're clever when they point out how progressives are supposedly hypocrites because they use electricity while simultaneously advocating for action on climate change, or something like that. I'm not on the left, but it's a meme I'm quite sympathetic to, as we critics of the government get lots of this nonsense as well. I can't tell you how many times I've been on Twitter or in the YouTube comments section, and I'll say something akin to, "The government kind of sucks," and some moron will pop out and say, "Yet you drive on roads. Curious. I am very intelligent." It's the exact same fallacy. You see, the reason I drive on roads is the exact same reason why leftists still use electricity. It's because we don't have realistic options to do otherwise. There are no major private road networks I can drive on. I cannot opt out of paying taxes in exchange for declining government services. If I don't send money to the government, they will throw me in prison. This is exactly why, if I make it to retirement age, and if Social Security is still available, I will collect every penny I'm eligible for. They robbed me my entire working life, I'm going to rob them back. The only time, in my opinion, where it's acceptable to hypocrisy shame someone, that is, the only time the dude popping out of the well is correct, is when someone does have realistic options to do otherwise, but declines anyways. Jet-setting global warming alarmists like Leonardo DiCaprio are the perfect example of this. He has other, less carbon-intensive ways to spread the good news of carbon reduction than flying a private jet across the world to some conference. He just chooses not to use those options. That's definitely not a good look. Now, where does Senator Bernie Sanders fit into this equation? We know that he's a big critic of status quo governance in America, which is fine, so am I. He seems to believe in working within the system, specifically the Democratic Party, to achieve his goals of reform. While a lot of leftist fans disagree with him on this,
then Bernie Sanders has his campaign and says, everybody, we gotta fight this fucking evil machine, and then on a dime he goes, hey, by the way, let's join this evil machine.
And while some of it certainly does seem to be at odds with his rhetoric, most of the online left commentariat, with some notable exceptions, don't seem to be too bothered by it, at least to the point where they're still willing to support him. What about the accusations that he's a champagne socialist? He certainly got plenty of flack when he bought that third home that cost him $575,000. Also, as many people pointed out, he stopped railing against millionaires in his 2020 campaign, presumably because he became one. None of this seemed to upset the online left.
And so they go back to what is a classic attempt to just dismiss everything by basically pointing, oh, you exist in the society as it is now, like, how dare you?
It's the meme. It's the meme. We should change society somewhat. Yet you participate in society.
That's it.
I'm very intelligent.
It is literally the meme.
Yep.
Much of the online left insists that major issues facing us, the issues that Bernie Sanders consistently raises, are structural in nature. In other words, while it would be nice for Bernie to give away some of his money, and while it would no doubt help some people, it's the equivalent of drops in an ocean. When Hassan Piker bought a mansion, he defended himself on these grounds while advocating for more systemic change. Hassan tweeted out, "Listen, if you're mad at me, tax the fuck out of me." I would get so mad. He was being sarcastic in the second sentence there. There's a fallacy here, though. As Jason Brennan and Christopher Freeman argue at Reason, it's not really true that donating to mutual aid wouldn't have an impact, and we don't take this standard when it comes to other things. It's true that the rich egalitarian cannot personally eliminate nationwide inequality by donating her excess income. It's true that if she does so, the change in distribution of income or wealth will be negligible. But, unlike the climate case, she can in fact make a significant difference about something she cares about, the well-being of the poor. An individual cannot eliminate inequality, but she can save a life or end someone's deprivation. When a rich egalitarian donates to the poor, she transfers money from someone who she believes shouldn't have it to someone who she believes should. A single donation may be a drop in the ocean, but sometimes drops in the ocean are morally required. Releasing the wrongfully convicted prisoner may not have a meaningful effect on the total number of wrongfully convicted inmates, but you still have a moral obligation to release him. What's more, taking the drop in the ocean argument seriously would mean that people are under no obligation to do many of the things that egalitarians think they should, such as voting for Bernie Sanders. Your vote for Bernie Sanders won't determine the electoral outcome, but he urges us to do it anyway. Of course, Sanders encouraging others to give him power helps him, while his donated money would hurt him. Sanders might say that if enough of us vote the right way, he can be empowered to help reduce inequality. But if enough of us donate in the right way, we can reduce nationwide inequality and poverty. Of course, a lot of the online left, including Hassan Piker, got all up in arms when Mr. Beast used his money to actually help people and improve their lives.
You watch the video and go, oh, how cute and how nice. I watched the video and I'm filled with rage.
What's wrong with you?
That we shut off access to a 10-minute procedure because we paywalled it and decided that, like, some people just simply can't get it.
It's almost as if it's not actually about improving lives or helping people. Bernie Sanders got most of his extra income from book sales. This adds another wrinkle to the Sanders story. Who is the #1 seller of books in the world? Amazon. That's where I got my copy of his book. In fact, as many people have forgotten, Amazon actually started as an online bookstore. As an aside, to me, this is one of the best examples of how a successful business can benefit us all. Books used to be outrageously expensive. As Nate Silver writes in The Signal and the Noise, books have existed prior to Johann Gutenberg, the inventor of the printing press in the West, but they were not widely written and they were not widely read. Instead, they were luxury items for the nobility, produced one copy at a time by scribes. The going rate for reproducing a single manuscript was about 1 florin, a gold coin worth about $200 in today's dollars, per 5 pages. So a book like the one you're reading now would cost around $20,000. It would probably also come with a litany of transcription errors, since it would be a copy of a copy of a copy, the mistakes having multiplied and mutated through each generation. Thankfully, books have gotten much cheaper over time, which necessarily means that they're more available to people who are not royalty. Amazon has contributed to this, as they have the widest selection of books available in the world, including an array of ebooks, many of which cost less than $10. Few people have done more to democratize information than Jeff Bezos and the good folks at Amazon. Now, take a wild guess what company Bernie Sanders railed against in his book. Amazon. They don't pay enough in taxes, they're bad for the environment, and worst of all, they exploit their workers.
In fact, for major employers like Amazon, Walmart, and the entire fast food industry, the gross exploitation and discarding of workers is the foundation of their business model. In these corporations, the turnover rate is extremely high, as desperate workers come in, are worked too hard, earn starvation wages, move on, and are replaced by other powerless, low-income workers.
So, by pointing this out, am I just another version of the dude popping out of the well? Bernie Sanders criticizes Amazon, yet he uses Amazon to make money. Curious, I'm very intelligent. No, I'm not, because Bernie Sanders had other options. You can, if you want to, self-publish books. Lots of people have. In fact, that's exactly what left-wing journalist Jordan Sheraton did with his book, Corporate Conjob. You cannot buy that book on Amazon either. You have to download a digital copy from his Patreon page. Sheraton deliberately did this so that he didn't feed the machine he was railing against. These aren't my values. I don't care if he sells a book on Amazon. But he does. And to his credit, he stuck to his principles. Even someone as brain dead as Lance from the Serfs manages to live his values to the best of his ability. He runs his operation as a cooperative. And he's taken his money out of corporate banks and put it into a credit union.
You take your money out of banks and join credit unions. Find a good credit
Yes.
union in your area. Credit unions are cooperatively owned by all the members of the credit union. Every single year, I get to vote on who runs the credit union that I'm a part of, and also where the money that they use their investments for goes, as in what projects for, stuff like that. It's way more awesome. Take your money out of mainstream banks and join a good, research it first, a good credit union.
How come Bernie hasn't done the same with his book sales? I mean, even Brett Keane could figure out how to self-publish books, and he's hardly literate. I'm pretty sure Bernie is quite capable of doing so as well. Instead, he decided to sign what was likely a very lucrative book deal with an evil media conglomerate, something Bernie Sanders also rails against in his book. And again, he could have sold it outside of Amazon, but he chose to participate in the exploitation of their workers instead. What was gained by this? The book might have been less accessible, but not necessarily. You can get self-published books in every medium you can get on Amazon with just an internet connection. Would he not have gotten the same amount of press, what with the national book tour, that he's getting now? Maybe, but he could have used this opportunity to rail against Amazon and advocate for people selling books outside of that system. He would have gotten a lot of attention for that, especially from independent media. It's not like Bernie Sanders is unfamiliar with blazing new trails. No one had run a major presidential campaign as successful as his prior to 2016 that was exclusively funded by small dollar donations. He even boasts about this in his book.
At a time when virtually all campaigns were funded by super PACs and the very rich, we broke that long-established mold and created an entirely new approach to raising sufficiently large sums of money to run a truly national presidential campaign. We did not hold one fundraiser in a billionaire's mansion. We did not seek the support of super PACs. Our campaign was fueled by the working class, teachers, postal clerks, Amazon warehouse workers, nurses, small business owners, farmers, and veterans, with more than 2 million individual donors making 10 million contributions that average $18.50. No campaign in American history had ever received that kind of support. We had revolutionized campaign financing, developing an entirely new model that rejected big money and put the people in control.
Why couldn't he have done something similar by selling his book in a different way? What was gained by publishing and selling his book through the traditional means, past putting money in his pocket? It's not like he needed that money either. Remember, he used the proceeds of his last book to buy a vacation home. So, is Bernie a champagne socialist? I don't know. You tell me.